Welcome to the 2021 Cathedral Antique Show. I'm Ann Matthews, all masked and ready for a star-studded morning. We thank you so much for being with us this morning. We've got Susanna Hamilton, our design home and design editor for Atlanta Homes and Lifestyles, and Lisa Fine of Lisa Fine Fabrics. As you will see in just a moment, our stage is full of Lisa's beautiful fabrics. She and Susanna will let us know everything that Lisa would like us to know about her fabrics, about how she got where she is, her success, and I think we're just delighted that you're here. Our sponsors this morning are ADAC and Travis and Company. As you'll notice, Lisa's fabrics are on the stage. We've got Billy Baldwin slipper chairs and sofa, and Liz O'Brien's accent chairs as well. We thank you for joining us. We're so excited that you're here, and I'm excited to introduce Susanna Hamilton and Lisa Fine.
And thank you for that lovely introduction. We are so happy to be here today at the Cathedral of St. Philip to kick off the 50th anniversary of the Antique Show. This is a landmark event for Atlanta that's not only for Atlantans, this is a national event that brings people together in all aspects of the antiques, decorative arts, floral and gardening, entertaining, and interior design. The beneficiary this year is the City of Refuge, the 180-degree kitchen, and all ticket sale proceeds will go to that entity. We are happy today. I'm beyond happy to be here on this stage set up. I'm sorry.
Listen, you haven't done this with a mask before. You're forgiven.
Yeah, no,
Susanna.
I'm sorry. We did not know that we were going to be masked, and we are making all kinds of changes to this, and we're going with it. So
Absolutely.
Lisa Fine has on a beautiful face shield, and I'm still in my medical mask, but I hope that you can hear us. We are going to delve right into this, and as Ann said, we've got a great stage from Travis and Company, so we'd love to thank them. And Lisa, welcome to Atlanta. Welcome to the Cathedral.
Thank you.
We are so glad that you are here. Lisa and I talked, and I know that you are generally never at home and traveling around the world constantly. However, 2020 changed everything, and you've actually been at home in Dallas for the past year. So can you tell us, after being at home for a year, what has changed or been redefined or reinforced about being at home for you? Has anything changed, or has it reinforced anything for you?
Well, it's sort of funny because this happened to me in the middle of my book tour, and I thought, oh, I'll go see my mother in Dallas until the virus subsides. And I kind of welcomed the rest at first, even though I shouldn't admit that. Then after 6 months, all of a sudden I had this epiphany, like, why have I spent my whole life in airports and restaurants when I'm actually a homebody? I've built a career about the home. I've been to a million cooking schools, and I never cook. And I'm actually looking forward to the pandemic being over, going back to my apartment in New York, and actually enjoying being at home in New York like I've enjoyed in Dallas. I miss that, I miss having friends over for dinner, and we've always been so busy that we don't really appreciate what we really have at home. And I think that as horrible as the pandemic is, I've been so lucky not to have had any illness or anything like that affect me. I feel sorry for those that have, but basically I think we're going to be in a much better place when it's over.
So how does that affect, as we anticipate vaccines and life changing somewhat in 2021, how do you anticipate easing back into entertaining? What does that look like for us in 2021?
Well, it's funny. I think smaller dinner parties, which I love because you actually talk to the people. I think people are going to now be more interested in food. They're going to we're going to go back to family recipes. We're going to go back to pretty tables because we've been forced to kind of do it. Even people who weren't interested in food or staying at home now all of a sudden are. I mean, people are cooking more, they're gardening more, they're reading more, they're watching more movies. And I think in many ways, they're making bonds with friends because you have your little bubble of people you see. And you realize, you don't have to see a million people all the time and be on the go. At least for me, in my life, in my circle of friends, we're all sort of embracing sort of the intimacy that this has forced us into.
So do you think that we will go back to really formal entertaining, or do you think this informal, casual entertaining is here to stay? What does that look like?
Well, I love to get dressed, okay? So, there's always an opportunity to get a new dress and, to have fun. But I think spontaneous dinners will come back. I don't think people are going to think, oh my gosh, I have to have them for dinner. I have to plan it. I have to do all this. I think both. I think that, during the pandemic at home, I have, out of my few friends, I'll call someone the day of and say, if you aren't doing anything, come for dinner. And I think that's something we've missed in our busy schedules, that our calendars are so full that we don't let life sort of evolve in spontaneity. So I think both. I think people are going to do a lot of spontaneous entertaining, and please don't take away formal entertaining, because that gives us an excuse to buy a new dress and bring out the silver and use Alex Hitt's cookbook.
So talk to us about how you found your passion for design and entertaining. Is that from travel, or does some of that harken back, because we're both from the South, and that's an integral part of life for us. But did your passion for design start? When did that initiate?
I've always loved pretty things, but the irony is neither of my parents have one interest, any desire about interior design. And so I don't know where I got it, because I've always loved houses. I mean, I always wanted to go see pretty museum houses or historic houses. And I don't know. I mean, but there's nothing I don't like that's not pretty, whether it's fashion, clothes, decorating, fabrics. So I don't know where it really came from.
But talk to us about your travels, because you've spent an extensive amount of time in India, really more. I know a lot of people that have spent time there, but I think you've been more frequently and over a longer period. And that has to have had a tremendous influence.
Well, absolutely. I worked in the design world in New York, and I had a lot of friends who were English. And every time I went to one of their apartments, whatever I loved, it always came from India. So I had sort of an obsession to go. And I was right, because the minute I arrived, I loved it. And I've been over 50 times. India, you can't describe it unless you've been there. And it's become a little cliche because now everyone is talking about it. But it really is true. I mean, it's an explosion of colors, fabrics, patterns, chaos like you can't imagine. And like I said, it's after 50 times and however many years, 20 years, I'm constantly finding inspiration there.
Did you ever think about buying a home there, having a home there?
Funnily, I used to have a fantasy about that. After trying really hard to make clothes in India, I realized I'm going to appreciate the wonderful Oberoi hotels, which I'm sort of Eloise of the Oberoi. India is very complicated. People think, Italians, French, it's sort of difficult running a house. India, I would not want to take that on. But the fantasy is alive, but I don't think it's going to happen.
But that's great. You can continue with the imagination
Exactly.
and the fantasy. So when you created this line, which you did really right after the 2008 crash, wasn't it 2010? Is that when it really started?
I think so.
So how is that something that evolved, or was that intentional? Did you want to create a line? Was that something you had always wanted to do?
It evolved. I knew I wanted to make things. I wanted something that had to do with textiles, and I wanted to do it in India. And I laugh because I never had a business plan. It totally evolved. I studied, I worked. I had so many failures, and the only thing that really makes me feel good is every, sort of top executive I've ever talked to says, well, everyone needs a big failure in their life before success. And I spent about 10 years working with embroideries and making coats and things. And as I was doing it, I was studying textile. And so I then went to California, and I said, I'm going to take everything I've learned in India, but I'm going to make it in America. We've heard that, okay? And so most of my fabrics, initially, they were all made in America. Now a few are made in England or Switzerland, but I don't make anything in India. It's just all the ideas come from there.
That's fabulous. And so I would guess that the manufacturing in America also makes it easier, more accessible, faster shipping times.
Reliable.
Yeah.
and
Okay.
consistency. And, consistency and reliability when you're dealing with interior designers and clients, there's no price for
Right.
that. You have to have that.
So I don't know how many of you were on the in the waiting room early and saw the slideshow, but this is Lisa's book, Near and Far, which really chronicles your travels and your design and entertaining. And this is really a beautiful, beautiful book that really documents homes of some of your favorite people, as well as it addresses some of the things you really subscribe to when designing.
Thank you.
So, of course, Miguel Flores Viana is one of the great interior photographers in the world. And can you talk to us about this book and how this came about?
Well, Miguel is a really dear friend, and I was approached by a publisher, and I was in London when I got the email, and I said, Miguel, we have to have breakfast. And I said, what do you think? He goes, what do I think? You're going to do it, and I'm going to do it for you. So then I thought, well, I'm not really the interesting thing. What's interesting is all the people and places I've been. And they have inspired me. And what I love about the different chapters in my book are all the people, whether they're interior designers or not, their rooms and their houses are very personal. They actually exude their personality, their passions, their interests, their travels. And no one is alike, and they all break rules. And they all sort of speak to me. And I was lucky enough to have Miguel work with me to put this together.
So, one of the things that I've always thought about design is that the best houses evolve as people travel, as people inherit things, as they mix. Isn't that sort of what this book is about?
Oh.
Is the evolution and your interiors are actually perfect in their imperfection. Would you say that?
Absolutely. And they're timeless because they've evolved over time, which is
Right.
so wonderful. You hit the nail on the head.
And it feels like you are willing to mix maybe older fabrics, period fabrics with new things. It's not just the antiques and the decorative arts and the painting. Although you have said one thing in here that I thought was great, which is that every room needs a fabulous piece of art.
Or an antique.
Or an antique.
Yeah.
But can you speak to us about that? Because I feel like that always gives a room such depth and really makes it individual.
Yes. Well, it's funny. The irony of it, these particular rooms, every room has a lot of important things, but not necessarily expensive. So there's a whole chapter on collections in my book. And it's sort of funny that there's a chapter on collections because every single page is a collection of sort. And a friend of mine that worked for Peter Marino once told me that you have to have something to anchor your room, whether it's a piece of art or a fine antique or something important, and then everything else kind of can ride with that. But what I love about this book, there are a lot of anchors, and I think we spoke about collections.
Yeah.
And I love to make the comparison because there's a chapter on the Kugels, who are probably the biggest collectors in the world. They have like $1 billion worth of antiques in storage, and they sell to museums. And then there's my friend Carolina Irving, who also has a textile line, and she collects fossils and shells and ceramics, and none of it is really expensive, or most of it isn't, but yet the way she assembles it, you walk in her house and you feel like you're looking at the shelf of a geology museum. And then my personal favorite collection in the book is Lee Radswell, because she likes traditional decorating, but she loves exotic places and she loves animals. So throughout her, this very traditional, soothing fabric, believe it or not, it's all beige and all very solid colors, but it's, punctuated by these whimsical sculptures and wonderful Indian miniatures. And that's a collection.
So are you constantly shopping? Don't you find that once you're a shopper of anything, you are a shopper of or a collector of?
I have tried to give it up, but it's kind of like giving up that martini when you go to a nice restaurant.
Yeah.
I try real hard. And even in the pandemic, the one good thing is I gave it up for a while, and then something happened and it was like it clicked. I got on the internet. Next thing I knew, I was shopping again. So, yes, I am a shopper, but I did grow up. My family had stores in Mississippi. So I like to say my playground was a department store, And sadly, I don't have stores anymore, but I think it never left me.
That's okay. You come at it from
Yeah.
a very
Yeah.
genuine and
Yeah,
authentic
it
place.
kind of
So-
never left me,
but I
but
think it's endemic in this business that we love to shop.
yes.
And I'm sorry that the Cathedral show is virtual this year because it actually is a phenomenal shopping opportunity if you're in Atlanta or want to come to Atlanta. It's a great, it's everything. There are antiques, paintings, jewelry, silver, rugs. It is just a phenomenal opportunity if you are here. So we want to make sure that you know that you can buy tickets online. The dealers are open and you can shop virtually. So that is an opportunity for you if you would like to take advantage of that. The tickets are online, and again, all those proceeds do go to the City of Refuge. So I have a question for you with regard to your jacket. Are you still making clothes, or is that?
That is long over. And
Okay.
like I said, this is proudly my big failure. And I learned
I
so
would-
much. It helped me with my textiles, but it was great fun doing it.
I would not call that jacket a failure. It's
Well,
beautiful.
Trying to make a business out of selling these jackets and making them in India. But it was a great journey. What can I say?
Well, good. Okay, so can you talk to us? What is on the horizon for you?
Well, it's funny. After going to India so much, I said, there have got to be other places that interest me. And there was a trip with the Institute of Classical Architecture to Sweden. And I said, everyone loves Sweden. And I thought, how could they love it, though? It's so clean, it's so stale, and so boring. Well, I went to Sweden a couple of years ago and loved it. I was inspired in Sweden just as much as I have been in India. And I'm working on trying to do some outdoor fabrics and maybe some wallpapers. And a lot of them have Swedish inspirations. And which I love is I began in design really loving cabbage rose chintz. Then I went to India and just loved block prints. And the older I get, I love the mix of them all in sort of a delicate way. So that's really what I'm thinking about.
So, do you see, after studying India and Sweden, for example, do you see translations of patterns and colors? I mean, they're very different countries, but do you see things that relate?
What I thought was most interesting, because in India, I love so much of the things that the East India Company would import the chintzes to England and Europe, and you would have these beautiful Indian chintzes that were sort of European, and a lot of people still think they're European because they now make them in Europe. But in Sweden, at the same time, they were importing chinoiserie from China. And even though they're very different, it's the same spirit in many ways, like a lot of the chinoiserie and a lot of the chintz. And it's just really sort of the celebration and beauty of nature and flowers and pineapples and palm trees and all the things we love. And it's just how you interpret them.
So, when do you think your outdoor line might be ready?
Oh, I don't want to jinx it. And with the pandemic, let's say a year from now, hopefully we're going to be lying on a beautiful chaise out by a pool somewhere.
That's very
after
exciting.
COVID. Yeah.
And then wall coverings, do you think that might be?
I don't know.
Not-
I'm doing lots of talking and sending of things, but until I can actually get on a plane and go work on it myself.
Right.
But the surprise is going to be what's fun. So let's just.
A surprise for you as much as for all of us,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. It's evolving. It's percolating, but a little limited with that.
Well, I do think, and it's been a discussion in the design business, that we all travel constantly, and that's where so much inspiration does come from. And I think once you can travel again,
Yeah.
you may be creating lots of different things. It might not just be an outdoor line.
The internet gives you so much, but there's nothing like being in a studio with artisans and watching them mix the colors and playing with the scales like on site. I mean, it's wonderful that we can carry on through Zoom and through FedEx, but there's nothing like the actual being there. And I think all those years I spent in block print studios in India really did subliminally sort of help me when it came to doing my fabrics here in America.
And I think things like going to these antique shows, you see things that you didn't know exist. And I think that's one thing in this business. I can't tell you the number of times that I'll go looking for something and I don't find it, but I find 10 other things that I fall in love with.
Absolutely. We all do that. It's like when you go to buy your mother a present and you end up buying it for yourself. Or your friend's birthday and you come home with a bag of something for
One
yourself.
for her and one for you.
We've always done that. But, it's funny you say about the virtual. I'm a little disappointed too, because I was at the opening of the Charleston Antique Show and I passed up some plates that I thought, oh, good. I should have got them. I'll get them in Atlanta. I'm sure they'll be there. But,
They might be online.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to kind of navigate that, but it's not the same, but it's still, you're right. And I have so many friends that were going to come with me to Atlanta because they all love shopping in antiques and they're excited to get online and shop the Cathedral Antique Fair.
And it can be hard online because you can put in words in a search engine and still not find exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah, but you know what? Insomnia is the best cure for that.
And you're a very good shopper.
Late at night, sometimes if you can't sleep, it's amazing how well your mind works. Much better than when it's supposed to work in the day.
Well, we have several questions from the audience. So let me read these to you. An Atlanta designer would like to know if Lisa has any plans to expand the Lisa Fine collection. Well, I think we talked about that as far as the outdoor. Do you see an expansion of fabrics?
Are you kidding? I have like 5 designs I'm working on now and colors. And that has been one of the beauties of the pandemic, along with, catching up on books and Netflix and cooking at home. I'm not traveling, so I'm at home working on fabrics. I have like a couple of new batiks coming out because I love batik. I'm going back to my initial love of having old-fashioned chintzy looking flowers like lilacs and things like that. Oh, absolutely.
So I know you've said that your favorite color flowers is this pink and orange and red or green and white. Do you find that you were sticking with that? And was this palette inspired by India? Because that is a very prevalent, or is that just something you've always loved?
You know what? India just reinforced it. I've always loved red and pink. India reinforced it. But, having worked in fabrics, I've become an indigo person too. So I've really expanded my palette. Before, everything was pink, but now I like all other colors. But it's hard to, argue.
Did India influence your cooking and entertaining?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, and I've done Ayurveda cooking classes, and I love Indian spices. I make curries.
So
it takes and I'll roast the cumin and all the spices, then I grind them with a mortar and pestle, and there's nothing better.
Did you pick up any cooking tips in Sweden?
No, but but the food was really good. I was surprised. It was really fresh. It all tasted so healthy and so delicious. I was surprised. In fact, I think I came with so much like almonds and snacks in my suitcase thinking I was going to starve, and anything but. It was delicious.
But not for a dinner party. Not
No.
a Swedish dinner party, not yet?
No, you know what? I love to cook, but I like stews and, beef bourguignon and curry, things that you like spend a day making. I'm not a good, sort of technical chef.
So one of the things that we talked about as it relates to that is you said that you really love one dish cooking, and you feel like that may be something that may evolve more, that we may get comfortable with a great curry and great bread and wine and friends. And
because I think it's easy. It's you can do it, and you don't have to hire a caterer. You don't have to have your housekeeper. You can just do it. And even people that have all these food neuroses and don't eat and are on diets all the time, I rarely serve something delicious that they didn't all eat. Because people really, I truly believe people love to eat and drink, even though they don't always show it or admit it. And I think the key to a good dinner party is good food.
That dinging is my new cell phone that I thought I turned off, and I clearly don't know how to. I just got it this weekend.
Oh, just don't worry.
And it's beyond me, so I'm sorry. So we have a question from Caroline in Mississippi, and her question, which we've already answered, is what inspires your fabric designs? And so since we've talked about that, Caroline, I think I'll take that one step further, which is to say, have you found any inspiration online? Do you think in this virtual world, have you been able to travel?
Absolutely.
internet as
Some of the
well?
best textile dealers in the world are online. And I have ongoing relationships with people in Istanbul and someone in Massachusetts and London. And, that you have all these dealers that sell documents and things. And so I found inspiration there, or even sometimes museums, or, some of the great people you follow on Instagram get really into historical things. I mean, yes. I mean, people ask me often, what should I do if I want to be a textile designer? And I say, look at everything. If you have the luck to, and you're privileged enough that you can travel and go places, that there's nothing better. But there's so many things you can see in books, in museums, or online. I mean, and that's really the basis of doing a textile line, is just seeing.
Scale, proportion, pattern, color, all of these things. And there's no right or wrong to this.
No.
It's finding the right combination of all of those things together. Okay, we have another question. Hold on, let me read this, sorry. Let's see. Lisa mentioned that she loves to anchor a room. What is a favorite piece in your own home that really anchors a room?
Okay, I remember the first thing I bought that I felt like anchored a room. I was with my girlfriend, I was telling you, Barbara Hawkins, who works for Peter Marino at the time, and I'd always wanted a black lacquer desk. And I found one at an antique fair in Paris. And I love black lacquer. And that was it. I think it was like a 18th century black lacquer desk. And it really anchored, it was in my bedroom in Paris. And now it's in my living room. And it's one of my favorite pieces of furniture.
So, for example, on this stage that Travis and Company has set up, there's several anchors. I mean, the sofa, the coffee table. Do you find that one piece anchors a room, or do you find that mix of?
Well, I feel this rug makes this whole space come alive. I'd like to say it's my wonderful fabrics, Lee Strike, named after Lee Radswell, Cochin Batik, named after Cochin in India, but it's the rug. And I wish I could remember the name where we got the rug. But this rug came next door to Travis at ADAC, and they had so many beautiful rugs, but there's something about the yellows that
lifts it up.
Yeah, lift it up. And if I had to say what anchors this, I would say it's the rug.
So it can be anything, whether it's the rug, the architecture, design, anything can anchor it. Okay, we have more questions, so let me get back to these. So when you have your home in Dallas and one in New York, are they the same, or have you done one in one sort of feeling and the other in another? I mean, do you?
They're totally different. Obviously, my taste, they have influences of, color and, animals and flowers and things like that I always love, that are always with me. But in my book, there's also a chapter on John Stefanidis, the designer. And I love his philosophy. He always said, no matter what your taste is, you have to pay attention to your environment and your architecture. And in Dallas, I have a very sort of 1970s wraparound terrace, and it's really wonderful. And I try to keep within that spirit. And in New York, I have a very dull, normal, it could be a dentist office, my building. And I try to disguise it and hide what it was. And I think whenever you do a room or a house, you have to walk in and follow the space and let the space tell you what to do, and then start instilling your own taste.
So Dallas and New York are both big entertaining cities. Are both of your apartments, are both of your homes equally formal or informal, or would you say that inviting and comfortable is the benchmark of your homes, and from there?
Yeah, I think basically for most things, I love sort of casual. What would be the word? There's so many words that are overused.
I think it's refined.
Refined.
It's comfortable and inviting, but it's still elegant and refined.
Yeah, I like.
And I think that is. I think that's we see so many interiors that are exquisite and beautiful and pristine. We see others that are relaxed. I think the one thing that comes through in your interiors is this mix of old and new in different places and periods and styles. And so I think that really comes through. So I didn't know if your own homes were that eclectic.
Yeah. I really think that I like to think of a room as a room that you could be really casual or really formal in.
Do we have time for one more question? We do? Okay. Okay. So based on our rug conversation, we have a question. Have you ever considered rug design?
Well, it's very funny. You probably all know the Alabama decorator, Richard Keith Langham. The two of us did rugs together in Jaipur, India. And I sort of bailed out because I just had, as much as I love India, I just didn't want to work with India anymore. And I don't know if Keith is still doing them or not. I think maybe he does for clients custom rugs, but there's so many great rugs you can order in India. And I share sources all the time and tell people that want them. But I don't make them myself. I'm focusing on my textiles, and I love doing textiles. And the rugs, it was fun, but it was just more trouble than it was worth.
So it was just easier to walk next door. This rug, I think, came from Sullivan Fine Rugs. Does that sound right at ADAC, Sullivan?
Yes, that's it.
Fine
That's exactly it. Yes.
And so it's much more fun to walk in there and have them roll out all these selections, and they just keep coming, and each one is better than the one before. It seems like.
So much fun. I love it. Love it. And in fact, I bought a rug for myself, and I called a friend from there and said, "There's something you have to have."
So you're a shopper.
Yeah, and I shop for other people too. When I see things,
or imaginary other people that might.
Oh yeah, oh no, absolutely. And I get a vicarious thrill. I'm not jealous or competitive at all. I see something pretty. If I can't afford it, I'll get on the phone and call a friend and say, "You gotta have this." And most of them trust me. That's the funny thing.
Have you ever sold anything that you wish you had kept?
Actually, no, believe it or not. I have passed things up I wish I'd bought.
Right.
And it's so funny how life is, because you think, oh, I shouldn't buy that, but I've never regretted what I bought. And I don't ever get buyer's remorse, but sometimes I do kind of think, God, why did I let that go?
So are you the kind of person that you love all of these individual things? I mean, do you remember who you've sold certain things to that were really fabulous? Do you know where things are that you really love?
Well, I haven't sold that much of my things.
Okay.
I really haven't, but certain fabrics, like for example, I have a fabric in these colors, but it's with pineapples. And I saw that Celery Kimball had bought it several times. I thought, oh I'm so happy someone with good taste is buying this. It's like Matthew Carter buys a lot from me, and Markham Roberts. And, so a lot of, I do notice when people buy fabrics, and Leanne Thornton, I can just go on and on, all the different designers that buy certain fabric, Kathy Kincaid. And so I get really happy when I see that friends who are designers buy my fabric, and especially if they buy one that I really like.
So have you seen the interiors that Celery used the fabric in?
No, I haven't. But it was funny because pink is a hard color. You either love it or you're scared of it, I find, and a lot of men don't want it. So whenever someone buys something that's so pink, I always kind of get excited.
But you can do a lot with it. I mean, you can really bring out the pink, or you can tone it down.
Oh, absolutely.
Brown works. I mean, you got, is that brown or black?
It's brown.
It's brown.
And I think with all of these people moving to Florida, there's going to be a lot more pink.
There will be a lot more pink. We'll see a lot more vivid colors.
Yeah.
And do you think we'll see that as a result of COVID? Do you think we're going to see interiors sort of toned down and be subtle? Or do you think that we're going to see an infusion of color and vibrancy as we emerge from all of this?
Well, I keep saying that because so many people have been at home watching The Crown and old movies, that there's going to be sort of a throwback to nostalgia and old-fashioned pretty, but yet it'll have a modern twist. And that's what I keep hoping, because I've seen so many pretty interiors in movies since I've been locked down.
Well, that's a credit to good set designers. Maybe.
Yes, and I just, and people notice, though. They notice. And so I'm hoping that there's going to be a lot of good effects coming out of this when we finally
finally emerge.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions from our audience? I don't want to leave anybody out if we've got more. We're good? Okay, well, we would love to thank you so much for being here. This has been such a pleasure and a joy to speak to you and have you impart all of your wisdom and experience and inspiration to us. Thank you so much.
Listen, thank you. This
No.
is such a pleasure. As I was telling a friend of mine, going to Atlanta, I felt like I was going 80 days around the world. You know, it's my first big trip, and I love Atlanta, and I love the antique fair, and I'm just, you know, I can't wait to get online and look at it.
Well,
And you're so sweet to have me, and I'm really happy to be
we
here.
loved it, and we want to remind you that Lisa's book is available.
Oh, yes.
So it is a fabulous, as I said, a fabulous volume that you can travel vicariously. And there's just so much information in here, as you've said, about collections, fabrics, people. It's everything in here. It's a really wonderful book. And you can buy one for yourself and one for your friends. And please don't forget to attend there's so many events and panels. In fact, you're speaking again tomorrow night with cocktails with Alex Hitz and
Francis Schultz.
Francis Schultz and Margot
And-
Shaw.
And Richard Keith Langham.
Richard Keith Langham. So it's a full evening tomorrow night for cocktails. And you can shop anytime online 24/7 while the show is going on. And there are other events throughout the long weekend for you to enjoy. So please attend the Cathedral show. And next year, when you can attend in person, by all means come. It's one of my favorite events in Atlanta. And we would love to see you. Thank you again.
Thank
so much,
you.
And thank you to the Cathedral.
Thank you.